Once Tesla broke that level, that was it. The floodgates open. Now it's a question of if it can get down to... Hey everyone, in tonight's video, I've got 5 stocks I really want to go over. There's some trades that are setting up really nicely here that we're going to address. But I also want to focus on very leading stocks going into the midterms and CPI. So as always, subscribe to the channel, click all notifications. But this is one we went over on Saturday. And it's really important that if you're going to follow along, that you just put on the all notifications so you're aware of this. But one of the core things that we were focused on was this line down here. Now, if you focus on how this played out, let me just show you this. And there's your little line right here, drawn decently. Then what you do is you clone these. By cloning them, you get the exact same trajectory and angle. And then you just see if they pop into place, and that kind of pops into place right there, right? So here we are. Here's our flagpole. Flagpole can be a whole myriad, right? Does not need to be what? Does not need to be one bar. Okay. So now you're trading up, you're pulling back, you're trading up. And this is exactly what you want to see, right? This is the kind of behavior that you want to see. So you want to see these develop, test, retest, and then they make a decision. This made a decision today and broke. I'm just going to just leave this caveat out there. I'm currently short this, and we currently have puts as well from the trading community today. We did quite well with it. But I do think it's interesting that this is the one that stayed down. The majority of other names really didn't stay down, did they? They kind of bounced around a little bit, but they didn't really completely implode. So I think that's important for us to get. Some of these rallied, some of them didn't, some of the leaders. But there's no way that I think that this is going to head back until you get to that 190. You're not going to break this major move down and then miraculously go back unless somehow midterms lift high beta names, which I don't see. So then that leads us to what? CPI. Well, if you have a good CPI number, meaning lower than anticipated, yes, of course, this could rally. But we don't even see people buying protection yet. So now you're seeing these levels, and I would watch that 190. This is something that I would really strongly suggest you take a look at. So this is XOP. Now, XOP is oil and gas exploration. Now, the bottom line with this is if the Republicans win both the House and the Senate, and this is not a political statement, but I'm saying if that happens, gas and exploration companies will go higher. You will see them push, and that's because they will expand gas. Other energy names could actually come down. How was one that I started a position in. I kind of like the way it's acting, frankly. Came back down, backfilled, and then went back up. Schlumberger is doing the same thing. Focus on those 3 names going in the midterms if you think it's going to go that way. If you don't think it's going to go that way, then you probably want to do the inverse because these names will get absolutely hammered and so will XOP. Let's say that you think that the Democrats are going to win both sides. Nothing is going to be more affected than oil exploration and gas exploration stocks. Now, we had some real disasters. So we're seeing this lift. Let me zoom in on this so you can get this. So we're seeing some real disasters overnight. So we have this closing at 14 and now we're down to about 12 bucks. And we were actually a little bit lower, right? I'll show you where those earnings are and show you these levels. I'd be surprised if we hang on here, but anything's possible. Let's take a look at this on a 15-minute, just straight down. Now you're trying to hold going into the conference call. So Lyft beat by 10 cents versus 7. So they beat, but you missed on revenue. You cannot be missing in revenue here. And they're lowering sales. So they're lowering guidance. This is not where you want to be. It's going to be very interesting on the conference call because they're probably actually going to have to go even lower than that. You can see here November 3rd, they came out and started laying off 13% of staff. They're going to incur restructuring related charges. There's a lot going on here. And there's a lot of parts of this that people aren't really looking at as well. Disclosure, I have a short position in this. I'm in real no hurry to close it. I'm very curious to how it goes during the conference call, so I'm going to stay in that. But I do think that this leads you to something else that you just kind of have to think about, okay? Now, one of the key issues and one of the stocks that we've been shorting for some time, we shorted it again today and made money. I actually even increased my short position today, and I've been short since back here, riding it up here, dealing with everyone's comments that I didn't know what I was doing here on YouTube, and now I'm at 7 bucks. So to me, again, this is still zero. Vroom is coming out with earnings tonight. But there is an interesting thing that's going on here that people are not really, and this was the one that Vroom, you see what happened to this one and how it just completely imploded. What's interesting about CVNA that people are not understanding, I don't think, is that their inventory is an asset. So if you have an asset and your asset is depreciating, well, that puts you in a really rough, precarious position, right? Because no one's going to want to lend you money against a depreciating asset. They're going to want better terms. That's going to affect companies like Lyft too. Well, people are going to say, well, why? Well, you need a car to drive. Okay? If the car is more expensive and the payment's more expensive, then the spread between what you're getting for the ride, what it's costing for gas, and what your car payment is, all of a sudden, what Lyft has to charge, this does not become as cost effective. And this is really going to wear on that business. Now, Uber was able to stave some of this off with food, but the days of a $60 cheeseburger and getting those delivered are probably over. So the reason I'm bringing this up is I think Lyft on this conference call, they have some real serious questions that they're going to have to answer. And I think they're going to really hammer them a little bit on the questions tonight. Now, as far as good news, this SEDG, we actually are having a sector that is completely crushing earnings, okay? This did not crush last time. We actually had a miss right here, right? But we don't have one now. Do me a favor, please comment. Are you more interested in me covering the earnings? Or are you more interested in what I think is going to move tomorrow morning? There's a differentiation between that, right? So like I think Tesla has the possibility to move more and some other ideas, but I don't know if I should be covering those or I should be covering the earnings and what is timely. So if you can comment on that below, it would help me. So I wrestled with that tonight. So you can see this, we're up about $20, right? Now that we're up about 20 bucks, what do we do with this? That's a decision you have to make, but earnings are earnings. Now, after hours, this is wild. And you're having over a $30 swing in this thing. It's a lot. It's a lot. Now, earnings were good. They weren't great. I really am curious about this conference call because last time it started out like this good, and then the conference call and it turned into a dumpster fire. So hopefully that doesn't happen this time. 855 versus 885. If you average that together, that is way higher than the estimate. So that is a good sign. The action after hours, even though I'm complaining about the volume and how thin the stock is, completely irrelevant. The stock seems to not care and is continually to push higher. And I think that that's really what you have to focus on. When you have a 15-minute bar, you close over that, now you're making a higher high. You can do that, right? And you can do that trade. The problem I have with this particular trade is that I've got a $20 wick. So where do you put your stop, right? So because you have to set up the trade. So maybe you let this bar form and maybe you put it there and it costs you $3 to see if you're right and you can make some money. That's up to you. It's not really my kind of trade. I would watch it tomorrow. So now I would say something that I thought was really interesting, and then we're going to go through the indexes here. I do find this fascinating. Okay, so if you take a look at NVIDIA on the weekly, and I was on both sides of this today and quite frankly made very little money on either side of it today. Actually, on the short side, I actually lost a little bit of money. But you see this, 1, 2, 3. So I'm up for 3 weeks in a row on semiconductors here. I just find it fascinating. I'm not really sure. Are we saying we're so sold down that it's a matter of time? And then you kind of take this off for a minute and you're kind of seeing a V here, right? So I think this was worth talking about because we've never come near this. Now, do we rally up and then CPI is a disaster? See, the problem with positioning in this market is the overnight risk, not so much earnings, but I have no idea how we're going to react to midterms. Nobody does. And that's adding a lot of stress here. But if you take a look at this overall, since you've gotten above our levels here, this is kind of acting very, very well. So we'll have to see how it acts. Take out that 130 and we'll have to see how it acts. But this should be on everybody's radar. I mean, it's acting exceptionally well. So that's definitely one that I would be paying attention to. In regards to the indexes, it is what it is. I mean, you're above the 5 again on the SPY. You can't doubt that. CPI are the arrows that are marked off. Here's your trend line. Now you're trying to reverse right back into the 50. I don't know if we're going to get back up to this 388 or not, but you have to know where these levels are, right? So your 388 is pretty much going to get you right where you need to be. If you take a look at the Qs, something very similar. Let's get rid of this OBV. And then you're going to get back up to this 277. You're trying to get above there, but there's something that I look at, and I think that it's pertinent as well. Yields are going higher, but people are buying equities. It doesn't add up. So it's got me a little confused, to say the least. Now, if you take a look at this and you focus on what's going on here, right? That's not exactly what we want to see either. So, okay, so we have the VIX dropping going into midterms because they're going to be so obvious. See, we have a lot of conflicting data here. So let's see how this plays out. But right now, there's too much conflicting data. And I just want to point this out as well. I use this as a guideline during the day to kind of tell me where I'm at as far as should I be long, should I be short? And I also trade it. But let me just show you this. Right? Sometimes this is just easier to trade. So when we've been breaking this 5 in here, and I know I'm going through a lot tonight, but there's a lot that's really important. We've not been getting below this and staying below this, right? Didn't happen here, didn't happen here. Well, here we are again. So this is the crux where you could possibly turn, right? And what did we do when we broke it? We broke it and then we just stopped. It was very milquetoast. So think about that. Watch this line. This is just a simple 5 SMA on a 15-minute chart. And kind of go from there. You can actually just see it here on the blue line as well. Take this off and go from there. So you can kind of see it there. If you are interested in the trading community, there is a link below and I'll put it up here as well. It's now closed and it is on a wait list. If you sign up there for the wait list, you'll automatically be added to the free newsletter. Have a great evening. Trade to win tomorrow.